I then found, after doing lots of like crash diets, I then found veganism. And it was like the first time that I was a diet like bigger than me. It was about like the planet, it was about animals. And I was like, okay, this feels good. Like there's a purpose behind it. And it's not just about like, how small can I get or how much weight can I lose?
Hi everyone, and welcome to LATV Latina exclusive. My name is Yanina, Latino TV host and all-around creative woman who has worn many hats throughout life. Today I want to welcome the lovely Alexa Soto to the show. She is a Mexican-American from San Diego, California, and a foodie dedicated to inspiring creative, veganized, authentic Mexican recipes for her wide online community. Her page shares an array of aesthetically pleasing recipes, so I'm so excited to talk to her because if you know me, I'm a foodie. Alexa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So first, before I ask you for the 2 roses and a thorn, what sign are you?
I'm a Taurus.
Of course, she's a foodie. That's why I knew. Me too.
Yeah, and we love comfy, cozy.
Yes. So you know the vibe.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start off the show with 2 roses and a thorn. So what are your 2 roses and a thorn?
Okay, so I was trying to think of mine. One of my roses is probably being in LA for the day because I'm so excited to try so many like different food places. I have a whole list. And another one is, so I'm actually working on my cookbook, which is like a huge goal of mine. And I just finished like the first round of edits. So like that's a big deal because I've been glued to my computer screen. So I turned that in. And then a thorn, probably just being overworked and like a little burnt out. But I feel like with someone who's like creative, like you need like the low times to like get to the high times. So I think I just need to like take a little rest and then like feel re-energized again. But yeah, I have been feeling a little burnt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's understandable. You have a lot going on.
Yes.
So for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you have going on right now. Obviously, you're a foodie, you're into veganism, you are a vegan, and how all that started.
Yeah, sure. So it was about 8 years ago. I was 20 and I was doing lots of different diets. I think I mean, maybe you could relate, but I come from a culture where there's always comments on bodies. Flaca, gorda is like a normal thing to say. And so I always just felt a pressure ever since I was like a teen to diet when I didn't need to.
Right.
And I found myself like 19, 20, where I was looking for different diets to lose weight. And I guess I just wasn't doing it for me truly, like to feel like good physically, mentally. And I then found, after doing lots of like crash diets, I then found veganism. And it was like the first time that I was a diet like bigger than me. It was about like the planet, it was about animals. And I was like, okay, this feels good. Like there's a purpose behind it. And it's not just about like, how small can I get or how much weight can I lose? So I felt like there's a purpose. And then in turn, I did feel really good. So it was like a win-win, and that was essentially like what brought me into veganism. And then soon after trying the vegan diet, I mean, I've always been a foodie. I've loved cooking shows. Like I watched the Food Network more than the Disney Channel. Like it just fascinated me. So I would watch I would watch the Food Network all the time. And I always dreamt of like being on a show like that or having a cookbook. And so when I went vegan, I was like, okay, that means I have to cook for myself. Like my mom isn't going to cook for me anymore. So I started cooking more. And then my now boyfriend at the time was like, you should put it on a blog. And I'm like, okay, how do we do that? So we set up a blog, and that was like 8 years ago. Vegan wasn't like that big like how it is now, but I started an Instagram page and I just started posting my like little smoothie bowls and like healthy eats, and then it just like slowly grew from there. I like grew a little community, and now it's turned into a place where I share like my culture more through food, like Mexican vegan food, and just like it's really nice because I have a community that like I feel like they see me and I see them. So it's like food, mental health, and yeah, that's kind of a little story.
When did you decide to transition from doing vegan meals to vegan Mexican meals?
So when I first started, I feel like I even had the idea of like vegan food as like smoothie bowls, salads. And then I just started realizing I'm like, I'm missing out on like my culture. Like I miss like the carne asadas and like the gatherings with my families where I can just eat whatever. So I started to slowly like try to like veganize these things that like my mom would make or my tias would make. So little by little, I started sharing it with my community. But at first, it was a little difficult because I feel like there wasn't that many like Latinos in the vegan community. And when you would search like Mexican vegan on Google, it would be like recipes from people that are not in the community. So it was super like whitewashed or Americanized.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like it was hard for me to like put my recipes out there and then be received well. But I feel like as the vegan community is growing and just like it's just becoming more normalized,
Yeah.
more people are like, you don't have to be vegan to like enjoy vegan food.
Right. No, I'm not vegan,
Yeah.
and I have some favorite vegan restaurants here in LA because I love that's a lot of the times I think there's a few misconceptions, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in veganism is that it's going to lack flavor, it's going to lack protein, and that the texture is going to be weird.
Right.
And there's some places that I've tried that I'm like, you cannot tell me this is vegan because it tastes so good.
Exactly.
So backtracking a little bit, you mentioned it all started from crazy diets, being a Latina, you know, mete la panza type of situations. So how have you been able to now, being a vegan, rewire your brain to do it, that you're fueling your body, you're feeding yourself because you want to, and not for external validation, or not go into this crash diet mentality that we are raised to have a lot in the Latin community?
Well, I would say it's like a work in progress.
Yes.
I mean, I'm like 20, almost 28 now, and I feel like it's something that I still work with my therapist. You know, I have my little moments. Like it's not like how it used to be when I was 20, but I do still have those moments where I'm like, you know, talking bad to myself or like thinking negatively about my body and like what I'm eating, or if I like splurge too much. But I think all in all, it's like I think food is just such like a it could really fuel your like your mental state. Like if something like a taco or like I don't know, a concha or whatever, like a sweet treat or something indulgent makes you happy, it's like, okay, maybe it's not like fueling my body and making me physically feel like the greatest, but it's making my mind like feel like nostalgic, and like I think of like the memories I have with my family. So it's like giving myself those opportunities to say like, okay, like food is more than just like fuel. Sometimes it's like also fuel for your mind, like it can bring you joy and happiness. So it's just having like a good balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you started being a vegan, how did your family take it?
My parents like thought it was a joke. Like they were like, no, like ¿qué le vas a hacer a tu tía? Like what are you gonna eat when we go to like your family's house? And I'm like, well, like they thought it was a full on like fad, like just like a little thing I was trying out,
a trend.
Yeah. But with time, I think they like slowly were like, okay, like it's been years. Like she's like serious about this. And now my tia will like text me before I go over, like, oh, mija, like I made you the rice with like vegetable broth instead of chicken broth. And like I made you calabacitas, like little things like that. I'm like, thank you so much, you know? Whereas like it took time, you know? That's what people ask me, like, how do you do it? Like your family, like just like makes fun of you or like gives you a hard time, but I think that like after a few years, like they'll come around.
Yeah. Now you also talk about mental health on your Instagram, on your blog, and all your social platforms. So what made you want to start sharing that part of yourself so publicly? Because a lot of people, that's their biggest fear of how they're going to be perceived, or there's a fine line of what I want to share on social and things of that sort.
Yeah, I think it's like so fair to want your privacy on social media when you're sharing your life or sharing whatever it is, like your craft. But for me, I just know like how it feels to feel like super lonely in the moments I do feel down. So after I'm out of it, I think I like have learned to have like really good coping mechanisms, whether it's like therapy or like walks or just like my little things that make me feel better and like my coping. But once I'm out of it, I like to take moments to be like, hey, like last week I had a really bad week. Like, just so you guys know, just because like sometimes I do get, you know, comments or messages like, oh my God, you're so lucky. Like you and your husband have such a great life. I'm like, yes. But like also there are also hard times where like, I don't even want to roll out of bed today.
Yeah.
So I feel like it just creates like a closer knit community. It is hard because it could be a little draining because then people want to share their side. So it's like you have to find a good balance.
Right.
And But for me, it's worth it just because, like, I've gotten so many messages like, you're the reason why I started therapy. Like, you're the first person Latina that's, like, said, like, go to therapy. Like, it's okay. You can. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that there's something awfully wrong with you. Like,
No, I think
it's for
therapy, there's
everyone.
a really big misconception of who should go to therapy. And therapy in all can just teach you to learn to know yourself better, how to
Yes,
deal with situations
totally.
and times in your life that you may come across that you never understood or knew how to see it in a different way. And now you have an understanding of not only yourself, but of other people and how to process that action, time in your life, or situation that you come across. Like, it's funny that you said something that you talk about it afterwards. I
Hmm.
shared on my Instagram around like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Somebody asked me on a question and answer, oh, are you like, can you be so vulnerable on Instagram as well? And for me, if I'm vulnerable, it's because I've surpassed it.
Totally, yeah.
You can't expect people to share what you're currently going through in that moment, because sometimes you don't see clearly in that moment. Everything is jumbled. I always compare my
Totally.
brain to a computer. So I'm like, there's too many things on my desktop. I need to organize them into different folders. And then when I do that, I can be like, okay, this is what I need to do, or this is what I was feeling, and associate
Hmm.
it. But in
Yeah.
that moment, it just feels so jumbled. So, I think a lot of times too, when people see your stuff, they might think, oh my God, she must be going through this. But the fact that you tell them, hey, last week,
Hmm.
not only shows a way to be able to relate to you, but they're able to also see how you were able to process through it.
Right. Yeah.
I think also a lot of the times sharing on social media about something vulnerable, if you're going to share, have like an answer at the end of it, so like
Hmm.
a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So that's why I like sharing it afterwards, because I'm like, okay, I went through this, but this is how I did, and this is what I did that may help you if you're feeling this way as well, to help you. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's so much more productive that way
mm-hmm.
because there's so many things, like, even aside from your mental health, but, like, things that happen on social media where people are like, are you going to speak about this? And it's like, well, sometimes we need time to process, just like
Right.
how you need time to process and see how you feel and, like, look inwards. Like, if you just act in the moment, like, can
Right.
you imagine what would come out?
If you're just a reactive person, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but like I had to work on being less reactive, because as a
Yeah.
Latina, as a woman, trying to like not always have a say, but make sure that I'm heard. I used to be so emotionally reactive when I was younger.
Hmm.
And then I was like two drastic people. I was either super emotionally reactive, or I would retract and
Hmm.
like say nothing. And then now on social, when there's like news and things of that sort, everybody wants you to support, to say your point of view, to say your political point of view. And
Hmm.
you're just like, I'm trying to get the information and see what is the right information so I could actually have a point of view on
Totally.
this.
Yeah.
But okay, so cookbook.
Yes.
Are you excited?
Oh, so
I'm
excited.
excited.
I'm so excited. It's truly, like, been my biggest dream and goal. It's going to be all Mexican vegan. It's called Plantas, and it comes out in 2024, the beginning of 2024, and I'm just super excited.
When
So,
did you say, okay, it's the right time to start this?
well, to be honest, like, I thought I was ready, like, years ago. I was like, someone give me a deal. Like, I'm ready. But people would come to me and have this idea of Mexican food where I had one opportunity where this publisher wanted me to do a book just on street food, Mexican food. And I'm like, okay, like, yes, there's great street food when it comes to Mexican food, but there's so much more to that. So I just felt like it was just, someone telling me how to do this book that I've
Mm-hmm.
dreamt up for so long. And I really wanted it to be like a wide range of things, like everything you can think of. But of course, like, veganized. And there are, like, a lot of recipes from my family that I veganized, from my abuelita. Like, so it's a really special book. And finally, I think with everything comes with perfect timing. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
everything is meant to be. But yeah, it came at a perfect time. I've been working on it for like almost 2 years now, so it's a long time coming.
Yeah.
But
Have you
yeah,
done the pictures yet?
yes. Yeah, I shot everything myself and tested all the recipes. That was all last year. And then this year's the editing process.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's so exciting. Would you say there was a memory that you have that impacted the culture and the want to make sure that this is what you're doing today? Like, you're not doing a cookbook, you're doing a Mexican vegan cookbook. And that
Mhm.
seems to be very important to you. So is there like a specific memory growing up or in your teen years where you're like, I need to make sure that whatever I do, I showcase my culture in it?
So it's so interesting because when you were saying that, I like a little memory popped into my head when I was probably like 15 years old, and it was my times of watching Food Network. And like all the chefs, like there's Giada and there's Rachel Ray, and I remember telling my mom one day, I was like, I just want to be Giada, like I just want to be her. And she's like, no, like why would you, no, you're not gonna be her, like you are you, and like that is like perfect the way it is, like you never want to be somebody else. And I'm like, you're right. Like I can maybe like look for someone for inspiration, but like you're right, like I'm me. And so I just thought like, okay, like one day, like am I going to like be able to like bring me to the table, because there was really no representation of like Mexican cooking. It was all usually white women cooking. And while at the time like I like idolize them, I also as an adult now I'm like, but I feel like I deep to my core idolize like my tias and my abuelita more. Like I would look at them in the kitchen, I'm like, wow, they like move around so effortlessly, like everything is so easy for them. I'm like, am I ever gonna be able to do that? And that's what I would feel about like the Food Network stars. I'm like, how do they do that? But I would also see that in like my day to day. I'm like, this is like my real life. So yeah.
That's amazing. Have you been able to work with the Food Network?
No.
Well, we're manifesting it here.
Thank you.
You're going to work with the Food Network. Watch. People say that I'm a good witch.
Oh.
Because I say things to my friends and then it happens in a good, positive way only. We only do positive around here.
Good witch, yeah.
Yeah. But now that your passion has transitioned into veganism and cooking, what's after a cookbook? Is there something else that you're like, okay, I did a cookbook, I want to release it and want to do great? Would you do a cooking show?
Perhaps. I do virtual cooking classes, which is so fun. Yeah, so like we do them on Zoom, and like I've had like up to hundreds of people on a live, and I teach everyone how to cook. And it's so fun. Like
when did you start?
In the pandemic, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so I used to do them in person, but then when the pandemic happened, people were like, you should do them virtually. I'm like, yes, that makes so much sense because people needed something to do.
Yeah.
But now it's like still a thing. Like I do them like once a month with my husband.
Okay.
And he'll do some cocktails and I'll teach him how to cook, and it's like a fun time. So yeah, I love doing that. So I would love to like teach, like if it was like in a show format, but also I'm also already thinking of like my next cookbook.
Good.
I'm like, oh, I want to include this in the next one. Yeah.
Is it going to be like part 2 of Mexican cuisine?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, let's put it out there, but yeah. So we'll
okay. See. And what are some of your favorite restaurants in San Diego? Because you're from San Diego.
Ooh, okay.
Like your top 3.
Okay. My top 3. So one that I was telling you earlier, Donna Jean. They do everything seasonal, and it's pasta, like fresh pasta, pizza. It's delicious. Another one, I love Thai food. It's so good. There's one called Plumeria, and it's delicious. And then I guess my last one is probably Plant Power. I think they have one in LA too.
I think I've heard that one.
Yeah, so there's Plant Power in San Diego. It started in San Diego. It's like vegan fast food. But because that one's in LA, I'll say one more in San Diego. Yesai, they have really delicious like sushi rolls.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say like acai or something.
No, Yesai, and they have ramen and sushi. It's so good.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I need to try them. So I'm
delicious.
gonna write them down for all the visits for San Diego. Now, with being vulnerable on social media, have you also been vulnerable about the food part of it?
For food, yeah, I guess in like my storytelling sometimes, like a lot of recipes, all my grandparents have passed. So when I'm making their recipes, like I truly like feel them with me, like when I'm cooking, and when I'm sharing it, like I get like really emotional because I'm like, like it just makes me, it's like the best way for me to connect with them now that they're gone. So in that way, I do feel like I show like a little bit of vulnerability, and people can really connect with that because like food is such a vulnerable thing.
Of course.
There could be so many like memories attached to it. So.
And when you're dealing with mental health on your own, what are some of your favorite rituals that you do to kind of like pump yourself back up?
Honestly, walks, like walking outside, like getting fresh air. Sometimes when you like don't feel like it, you just have to like make yourself, like my husband will be like, let's go, like we're gonna, and I'm like, no, I want to stay on the couch, like this is my safe space. He's like, you're gonna feel so much better afterwards. Like the fresh air,
moving your body.
Yes, moving your body, it's so important. Walking outside, salt baths are like my jam. I love a good salt bath and like therapy. Therapy is like so important.
I don't think I've ever done a salt bath, but I've done a sound bath.
Oh, sound baths are nice.
Yeah, I like sound baths. I also go to sleep with meditation sounds,
Ooh,
and they really
yes.
help me. There's this app called Insight Timer, and it's amazing.
Ooh, I
So
love that.
good.
Okay.
Okay, now when it comes to the privacy of your life, do you keep like certain things off, like your relationship and things of that sort, or where do you kind of draw the line for people that maybe want to be vulnerable on their social media a little bit more, but don't know how to be able to like dissect it and differentiate it and put boundaries?
I think my best way to have those boundaries and like have privacy is like in social settings, like with my friends that are not on social media in that way, or like family. Like I never really pick up my phone because I'm always on my phone for work. Like my girlfriends will take out their phone to like, you know, like film like dinner or something like that. I like never think of it because I'm like, I do that all the time for work. So I like never post anything, but I'm just like present. Like I think it's just so important to be present, and not everything is like an opportunity for content. Like there's so many things that I forget to film sometimes. Like, darn, I should have filmed that. But I don't know. I think it's just so important to be present with the people in your life, like your family, your friends. And then with my relationship, it's like, of course, things have to be private. I just like to share like cute little funny moments, and people love to see that, and like they think that they exactly know how we are just based on like the little you know, sprinkles. But that's okay. They can think whatever. But I think it's super important to protect your relationships.
Have you ever had a negative situation on social media? Like a negative comment or a negative moment where you've been like, ugh, I need to get off social for a little bit and take a break?
Yeah, definitely. Like, especially being vulnerable. Like, that's what comes with it. Like, some people are also just not going to understand mental health, or they just don't have like the knowledge behind it. So I've definitely received some comments, and that's when, I just shut off my phone, delete the app for a day, and I'm like, all right, I'm out for a little bit. And also, you don't have to read everything. So it's just important. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when it comes to social media, what would you say helped you be able to grow the most?
I would say probably it's just a combination of like finding my community like beyond vegan cooking. Especially on TikTok, it's so interesting, like the people that you reach on TikTok. And I kind of have like a different angle because I'm like, okay, anyone can see this. And like you have your community that's like, you feel like it's tight on Instagram, but then you put something on TikTok, the same video, and it's like all these random people. You're like, oh my God. So it's funny because if I get a hate comment on Instagram, I get a little bit like stung. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is like my people coming for me. But on TikTok, I'm like, you're just some random dude. Like I do not care. But yeah, so I think it's just like a combination of finding my community beyond vegan community. So it's like my Latinos and like the Mexican community. And then also just like being vulnerable. And I mean, it's been a while. I've been on social media for like 8 years. So some people have been with me since the beginning.
What would you say if you had to describe your brand in a few words? What would it be?
I would probably say like comforting recipes, like comforting home and recipes, because it's like a little bit of like my life, my home, and like stories and my relationship. But it's like based around food. So I don't know.
Beautiful. Now, with the 8 years that you've been doing this, now with the cookbook going to come out next year, the success that you've had on social media, what would you say success is to you?
Honestly, I think success is just at the end of the day, like feeling truly like happy within yourself, because you can reach all your goals, but if you're overworking yourself, not taking care of yourself, I've found myself like in situations where I'm just like, yeah, everything on paper is like checked off. Like, yes, you succeeded at these things, but are you like truly happy within? So taking that time for yourself, being present with people that you love, I think that to me, that success is like truly being like having joy, like true joy.
And food gives you joy.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Alexa, for being here and for talking to us and sharing your story. We appreciate it. And now I'm actually very hungry. But where can they find you and your recipes?
So you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, my blog. It's all Alexa Fueled Naturally.
Okay, perfect. Now, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to follow us on social media at LATV Latina and catch up on our latest episodes on LATV Plus app We'll see you next time on LATV Latina Exclusives. Bye.